Hello, I'm Deborah Malone, founder of The Internationalist and host of Internationalist Marketing TV. Today's guest is Michael Kelly, Communications Director of World Bicycle Relief. Michael, it is such a pleasure to see you. One of the greatest joys in this business is seeing people in a host of different roles throughout their careers. And I'm so delighted to welcome you to the show and talk about some really great things today.
Thank you, Deborah. It is so great to be here. You and I go way back through our relationship with the ANA, and I've always really valued the internationalist community and the opportunity to join you at your events. So it's great to connect with you today and have a check-in.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, you've got some pretty big news. Let me just set it up as to say that you worked as a digital media and communication strategist in technology and for consumer packaged goods companies. And now you have an entirely new role with World Bicycle Relief. So
Yes.
I'm really excited to talk about this whole intrigue that seems to be happening now around nonprofits, but also some of the marketing differences between nonprofits and for-profits. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of all this,
Yeah.
tell us about World Bicycle Relief's origins and mission.
Absolutely. So World Bicycle Relief is a nonprofit social enterprise that's focused on mobilizing communities in rural regions around the world where a lack of access to transportation is a real major barrier for people to access education, healthcare, financial opportunities. We were founded in 2005 by F.K. Day, who is one of the founders of SRAM, which is one of the major bicycle component manufacturers in the world, and his wife, Leah Misbach Day. And it was actually a response to the tsunami that occurred in 2004 in the Indian Ocean that just was devastating communities in Sri Lanka. And they saw that there was a real opportunity and a need for a response on the ground to help mobilize people in the wake of that devastating tsunami. And that was the impetus where we saw the real impact that distributing bicycles could provide to, in that situation, provide resilience in the face of a disaster. But it also helped us to realize the incredible potential for bicycles to empower people throughout the world that just lack access to transportation, to some of the fundamental things that that we need to be that we need in our lives. And there are nearly 1 billion people in the world, Deborah, that live in these rural communities where they don't have access to reliable transportation, and the bicycle is actually one of the best solutions that we can make available to them to help to give them critical access to those needs.
It's a remarkable story, and one of the things that always touches me is often in the wake of disasters, how solutions occur, and the solutions are often much larger than anyone had originally envisioned. So I think the stories that come out of these events are sometimes quite remarkable. But
Yeah.
speaking of events, you also have a pretty important event coming up right now, which is it celebrates World Bicycle Day, and
Yeah.
your own event is called Pedal to Empower. And
Right.
I think you've got a pretty ambitious goal with this, don't you?
We do. So Pedal to Empower is sort of our annual big mid-year fundraising campaign where we do have an ambitious goal this year to raise $1 million to go towards delivering bicycles specifically to women and girls. So one interesting thing about World Bicycle Relief is that 70% of all the bicycles that we distribute through our programs and through our philanthropic activities go to women and girls in the communities that we're servicing. The research, Deborah, is very clear that when you empower women and girls with access to education, access to healthcare, it uplifts their entire communities. So Pedal to Empower is a really awesome program where we invite people from all around the world to join us on a ride. So we have people that sign up as individuals, we have people that sign up as groups, we have entire companies that sign up and motivate their teams to be a part of this, where we encourage people to trigger donations, but also to get on their bikes and ride with us to raise awareness for this important cause and also to raise funds to help, to fuel our mission and to fuel our programs. And World Bicycle Day just happens to coincide. June 3rd is World Bicycle Day. And as part of this activation this year, we're doing a pretty broad ambassador activation where we've got about 70 different cyclists and different ambassadors that are passionate about World Bicycle Relief who are all going to be activating with us on social. So you might be seeing some World Bicycle Relief content hit your Instagram feeds right around the same time that this interview goes live.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. That no, it sounds tremendous. Just repeat for me the percentage of your funds that go to women and girls. I thought that was
70,
quite interesting. Yes,
70% of the bicycles that we
70%.
distribute
Yes.
go to women and girls in the communities that we serve. And this is based, not only on the research and understanding of like how, the impact that we can drive and where we're driving the most impact in the communities. It's also, a legacy of just the mission as far as what FK and specifically Leah Misbach Day, as they, brought this organization to life, really understanding the need to focus on empowering women as part of our programs. So that to this day is still a key aspect of our programs, and Pedal to Empower is really one of the key initiatives throughout the year that's focused specifically on that aspect.
And I realized that other initiatives like micro lending, for example, had also been targeted to women who could
Yeah,
start to
we
build. Yes.
we do. We are experimenting with a lot of different sort of micro financing opportunities so that we can help. Whether it's a village saving group where you have many people in a village that are all pooling resources together to be able to purchase bicycles. There's a lot of different unique ways that we're looking to help finance the bikes so that they can be distributed to the people that need them most. Because in a lot of these communities, and this is why we have such a strong philanthropic side of our nonprofit, just something as simple as a bicycle is just frankly out of economic reach. Like even at the cost of $165, which is about the cost that it takes to get a bike actually distributed to an individual in one of these communities. Just getting that amount of money together at one time is often out of reach for a lot of the people in the communities that we serve. So we do have to be thoughtful about how we can use the philanthropic fundraising to help support the distribution, as well as how we can help to roll out some sort of innovative microfinancing opportunities, as well as partnership opportunities where we can partner with other NGOs or other government entities who are helping to support the programs. So.
No, it sounds it sounds extraordinary, and it does sound like it's a very inventive business model.
Yeah.
Let's talk. And what's also amazing, as you mentioned, in terms of numbers, right? 1 billion people might be in this situation without reliable transportation. Let's talk a little bit about the bicycles before we get into marketing, because they're Buffalo bicycles, and they're quite durable. I'm so glad that you shared that number of $165, just to give us a bit of a framework. But talk again not only about their durability, but talk a little bit about the business of making these bikes, because I think this is pretty inventive too.
Well, so let me start with kind of describing the business model. So we have World Bicycle Relief, which is our nonprofit entity that's focused on fundraising. It's focused on building those partnerships with governments, with other NGOs, where we can be that last mile mobility solution as part of broader development programs, right? It's also where we do the monitoring and evaluation of our programs so that we can show and quantify the impact that we're driving in terms of the outcomes, improving access to education, improving financial access to financial opportunities, et cetera. Buffalo Bicycles is the social enterprise business. So this is actually we have retail shops. I think we have around 80 retail shops throughout Africa, and as well as in Colombia and South America, where we actually sell and distribute these bicycles. And we've learned over 20 years of doing this that in order to distribute bicycles sustainably, there has to be a reliable supply chain. There has to be access to spare parts. There have to be trained mechanics in the communities that know how to work on these bicycles, so that these bicycles can stay in use for many years. And so Buffalo Bicycle is that side of our business. It's the social enterprise where we sell through retail shops, and it's actually a really innovative bicycle in and of itself. So we're very fortunate that FK Day, one of our co-founders, comes from the bicycle industry and has relationships with with people throughout the bicycle supply chain at Giant, Trek, Specialized. And so the Buffalo bicycle is actually specially designed for this specific population of the cycling world, where these are some of the harshest conditions. The places we operate: Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Kenya, Tanzania, Colombia, and specifically the rural regions within those countries where we're operating are some of the harshest conditions on earth as far as like the sand and the silt and the heat. So these bicycles have to be extremely durable. They're often also used for transporting, right? Transporting children to school, transporting goods to market, empowering healthcare workers to strap, their entire medical kits on the back of this bicycle and cycle out into these rural communities. So the bicycle is actually designed to support 220 pounds of weight, and we see people regularly exceed that. So it's an extremely durable bike that has been built to withstand kind of the harshest conditions, but that has also been set up in a way that there's this reliable supply chain so that we can support the bicycles in the communities after that distribution. So that's kind of the key. And one of the things that differentiates World Bicycle Relief and Buffalo is how these two entities work together, where we have the ability to raise funds and partner so that we can distribute bicycles to people that just frankly would be out of their financial reach. But we also have the ability to sell bicycles, at a reasonable price that's extremely durable, that meets the needs of consumers in these markets that frankly weren't being met before. So it's really unique, and it's that synergy between those two elements is really sort of what makes World Bicycle Relief and Buffalo Bicycle so special.
No, it certainly sounds it. And you really painted a picture when you talked about not only the durability of the bikes, but the kind of things that they carry, whether it's school children or supplies or anything else. I recall the first time that I went to China when it first opened up to the West. And it was before there were many cars, and there were seas of bicycles. But the thing that stunned me the most, of course, was how they were being used to transport all sorts of things.
Yes.
Like it was remarkable. 50 boxes with bungee cords. And I don't think these bikes had the durability that the Buffalo bicycle had. So I hope that paints a picture for just the usage and the need of this. You mentioned something else. I know that you have a very global team,
Yeah,
from all parts of the world, but it seems like your most of your efforts right now are focused in Africa and parts of Latin America. I think you mentioned Colombia in
correct.
particular. Um, if Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
The and also I'm just curious on another thing. Who qualifies for a bicycle?
certainly. Well, there's a lot of criteria that goes into determining where we focus our distribution efforts. As I mentioned, we have been focused on what we call our mobilized community approach, where we find communities that meet a number of criteria. Where the need is greatest in terms of lack of transportation, the type of geography. So we need to make sure that it's the type of geography where our Buffalo bicycles can be utilized, as well as where there's an opportunity for community involvement. So we know that in order to do this successfully, you have to set up a bicycle supervisory committee within these communities that are the people in the community that truly understand the dynamics of what's going on. They are typically going to be responsible for determining the allocation of the bicycles as far as who would be the most appropriate student or who would be the most appropriate person that would benefit the most from receiving the bicycles. So it really has to do. There's a lot of criteria that goes into like where we are active. I mentioned that we're active currently in 6 countries throughout Africa. That's going to be expanding probably to include some new geographies, as well as in Colombia. In South America is where we're currently focused on our distributions. But there's also great examples in other countries where we've done large partnerships with other NGOs. So, for example, we worked with Save the Children to do a large deployment in the Ivory Coast recently, where they've deployed Buffalo bicycles as part of one of their broader healthcare development initiatives. So we are active globally, but we sort of concentrate our efforts because we know what goes into doing this sustainably and to be able to manage the programs beyond just dropping off the bicycles, because that's just the first step, right, in terms of how to sustainably mobilize a community and really drive real impact with what we're doing, and to be able to measure it. Because as I mentioned, we rely on a lot of philanthropic funding. We rely on a lot of foundation partners and grants. It's our responsibility to be able to go back and show them the impact that we drove. So we are a very research-focused, evidence-based organization that has a lot of monitoring and evaluation that goes into these communities where we're distributing bicycles, so that we can report back on the impact that we're having and make sure that we're closing the loop there. So we have to make sure that we have all of those elements, from the supply chain to the monitoring and evaluation to the supervisory committees, in place. And that's why we kind of tend to focus on specific concentrated geographies where we can really measure and quantify the impact and then use that to scale the model.
I have just an odd question for you that just popped into my mind while you were describing some of this.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, and I don't know if you have the answer to this. I'm just curious, on average, how far does an individual tend to ride in a day? I mean, is school 5 miles away, or is a work opportunity, 3 miles away? I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, we do. And we do. It differs based on location. It's not uncommon for some children to have to ride 10 kilometers in each direction to get to school. And so you can imagine, and also in some of these areas, there are safety concerns, especially for women and children that are moving through these areas. So there's a lot of it can vary quite a bit. But you can imagine, Deborah, if you had to get up in the morning and you're in a situation where you're the girl in the family that's responsible for getting her siblings up, getting yourself ready for school, and then you have to walk 10 kilometers to get to school, how much of a barrier that would be just to accessing education, and what it would be like, how exhausted you'd be when you got there, right? To then start your school day. So by changing that to a 10 kilometer bike ride that you can accomplish, you cut that transportation down from an hour down to 15 minutes. That is significant. And when you think about this concept of sort of mobility poverty, this idea that lack of transportation can oftentimes keep people trapped in these cycles of poverty. We found that the bicycle is this incredibly powerful tool that can help to change the entire dynamic for the people that are living in these communities.
Right, and you even think about, even the health benefits. I mean, when you go to certain parts of Scandinavia, particularly places like Denmark, you still see people who are cycling sometimes to work, just out of the
Absolutely. The
sometimes even the
Netherlands,
joy out of it.
absolutely. And I personally, and this goes back to, we'll talk a little bit about what drew me to World Bicycle Relief, is I'm a cyclist. I ride to work. We, even here in Silicon Valley, where we have access to all the transportation, the bicycle is still sometimes the best way to get around. So I think, yeah, we can all certainly appreciate that, even outside the context of these rural communities where just getting access to a vehicle or to paved roads is just sort of not even part of their life.
Well, maybe I shouldn't ask you what would be the next obvious question, which was why you made the transition
Yeah.
from the world of for-profit brands to a nonprofit organization. But I think the passion that you convey in terms of describing, what the World Bicycle Relief does, it might be enough of an answer, but you might want to add a few other things to that.
For sure. As you mentioned, I've worked for the last 20 years doing communications, public relations, social media, in the CPG world, in the tech world. And I consider myself a brand storyteller at heart, which if you've seen me present at the ANA, this is really what I do. And World Bicycle Relief just really felt like a once in a lifetime opportunity for a brand storyteller to contribute to this type of storytelling. And I credit Leah Misbach Day, our founder, because she is a well-regarded documentary photographer, a very powerful storyteller in her own right. And that's always been kind of the core of the company, is being able to show the impact that we're driving on the ground. And so the opportunity to be a part of that and to tell this story just really felt like a once in a lifetime opportunity, and to partner with the great team that we have in terms of telling this story and the type of content that we're producing. So that was part of it. Part of it is also, frankly, after working for 20 years, when we first met, I was working for Red Vines, and while it's fun to work in the confectionery category, at the end of the day, you're trying to figure out how to, sell more high fructose to more people, right? Just the opportunity to lean into a company that's mission driven, that is truly making an impact, to get up every morning and to know that the effort that you're putting in that day is going to be truly providing a tangible impact and a change on people's lives is something that that really drew me to this opportunity. And as I was kind of looking at the next, my most recently, the company that I worked for was acquired by HP. I spent about 8 months there after the acquisition, kind of helping with integration, and then started to look for the next opportunity. And I think one of the biggest challenges that faces everyone today is the impact of climate on the world. Whether you live here in Santa Cruz and you have, the cliffs are eroding and the people that live right here on West Cliff are facing that, or whether you're a subsistence farmer in Zambia, we're all facing the impacts of climate change. And I think we all need to be thoughtful about how we can start to contribute to climate resilience. This company and this organization is a huge part of that. In fact, right now we have one of the worst droughts that's impacting Eastern Africa in some of the countries we work in, like Zambia and Zimbabwe. And we can really make a difference on the ground for people that are living through that and feeling the acute impact of climate change. So that was another thing that really drew me to this opportunity, was to have some real mission-driven work where I felt like, my efforts at the end of the day were contributing to something that was for the greater good.
No, and well said. I think that we're all trying, particularly in a post-COVID world, to try to figure out how to live with more meaning, rather than just more.
Yeah.
And we make some conscious choices in that area. Let me just segue to the practical, because, and I may not be right about this, but most people's perception of nonprofits is that so much of the marketing, and I realize you're doing a lot of storytelling for them,
Yeah.
but so much of the marketing is about raising funds, um, trying to get donations, partnering with groups that can help fund these initiatives.
Yeah.
So I wonder, um, do you find that the skills you had in the for-profit world are helping you here, or do you have to learn a whole new set of skills? I'm just curious, because I think there's
It's
probably a lot of people listening who are
yeah.
thinking about this same transition.
Well, there's a lot of very similar dynamics. So, like, for example, I worked very closely with our sales organization in the for-profit world. Now I'm working with our development officers, right? So it's a similar idea of like, we need to have compelling stories, we need to have a compelling brand, we need to have metrics that can back up what we're doing as we go out and look to engage donors or partners or foundations to be a part of our mission. But at the same time, it's a lot of the same core skill sets that transfer over. And I think that, having worked in large tech companies, for example, and having the opportunity to work with, some very sophisticated marketing organizations, I've been able to help, bring some new thoughts and some new thinking into what we're doing at World Bicycle Relief, where we have an amazing, established marketing organization and great communicators. But I'm able to bring in, just some different perspective. And they're also educating me based on their expertise in the development world. So it's really about learning kind of a new language. And we talked a little bit about the unique nature of our model, where we do have the philanthropic side, which is all about development. We also have the social enterprise with Buffalo Bicycle. So that's its own brand, right? Like, Buffalo Bicycle has to stand on its own as a brand that has its own shops in throughout Africa. So I get to work on kind of both sides, and it's really, so that's one of the things that makes this really exciting. So I'd say there's a lot of the core skills just in terms of working with people, working, a lot of the skills that would make you successful working in the for-profit world are going to carry over, but you're also going to need to learn a whole new sort of language as it relates to the development world and the fundraising world.
A question, just because it's an area of interest of mine, and you recall so much of this from the ANA and so on, in so many of the discussions about purpose and the
Yeah,
purpose-led organization.
for sure.
I'm just wondering, does the vision of purpose differ when you're really involved with a nonprofit versus a for-profit brand, or am I just looking at semantics here?
No, I think there is, in the sense that, like, our purpose, is really truly on focus on creating social impact and improving lives, right? So it's not just something that we like. we're not just using that as a marketing campaign. Like it's truly what we do, what we get up and do every morning. While I think a lot of consumer brands are leaning into purpose, but at the end of the day, that's going to be tied into business objectives and shareholder value and a lot of the other aspects that go into running a for-profit business. I think that it's a little bit different just in terms of how we measure our impact and measure our outcome, focused on impact rather than financial metrics, if that makes any, if that, if it helps. But I think that, the fact that so many for-profit organizations are thinking about purpose and thinking about sustainability, there's like a really natural opportunity for us to partner and to help to be a part of that purpose-driven marketing that might be existing in the for-profit world.
That's a really wonderful way to look at things, because there's probably ways, and you might have some examples of how brands can partner with an organization like World Bicycle Relief. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, well, as we know, companies are very invested in corporate social responsibility. Many of the large tech companies I worked for had significant investments in sustainability and initiatives that they were driving, and commitments that they were making as it relates to sustainability. And we do partner with a lot of corporate entities in a lot of innovative ways. One really cool one, Deborah, that comes to mind is Citizen M Hotels. So Citizen M is a well-established hotel chain throughout Europe. We have had a long-standing relationship with them where they've built us into their sustainability initiative that they call Citizen Movement. One of the ways that it works is they have as part of their climate mitigation efforts, they're trying to encourage people to not utilize cleaning services in their hotels when it's not needed, right? And so the way that we have this set up is that whenever someone at a Citizen M hotel checks in, and they decide that they don't need to have their cleaning service, that actually triggers a €3 donation to World Bicycle Relief. And they have this, very clearly laid out with, placards and things throughout the hotels. And over the course of this partnership, that's actually generated over 3.3 million euros through that Citizen Movement, initiative. And I just think it's a really great example of how, a for-profit brand could link up with World Bicycle Relief for a cause marketing campaign, for a sustainability initiative, or also just as a focus for global giving. So we know that a lot of companies are focused on employee matching and trying to make sure that their employees are contributing to support worthwhile causes. And we are a really natural partner that could be plugged into a global giving initiative. We, as you know, have beautiful content and beautiful storytelling that kind of makes us a natural partner to plug in for those opportunities. And we're very actively always looking for opportunities to partner. So that would be sort of my call to action to my fellow marketers within the internationalist community is, be thinking, is there an opportunity to partner with World Bicycle Relief around a co-marketing campaign, around global giving, things that you guys might be doing in the realm of sustainability that would benefit from a partner that's actually making tangible impact on the ground, that's ready to find a way to engage and partner with you guys.
Well, you have an advantage in that you've worked on, for-profit brands, and I think that you also have the language to speak to brands in ways that matter. And I think one of the challenges that a lot of nonprofits have today, or at least it's been my very limited experience, is that sometimes they don't exactly know how to think of opportunities for brands.
Sure.
But there also are beautiful examples as well. And I think part of it is this balance, very much like the balance of your own interesting business model, but it's the balance of a brand doing what it does well, like a food brand producing yogurt, and it's partnering with a nonprofit who understands how to perhaps distribute some of that food to people who are in need. And
Absolutely.
if your strength is making yogurt, your strength isn't necessarily knowing how to work with food banks. You know what I mean? That's a very simple example.
I'll give you another example. So, HP, where I was most recently, is heavily invested in sustainability. And digital equity is one of the core pillars of their sustainability effort. So they've actually built learning centers throughout a variety of similar countries where we operate, where they're providing access to technology and access to computing and making sure that there's an opportunity for people to access technology. Well, we know that for a lot of the people in those communities, getting to those learning centers is going to be a major challenge. So there'd be a natural opportunity to have bicycles to be a part of an initiative like
Oh,
that,
it's great. It's
provide
great.
access on top of an initiative like, rolling out digital equity focused learning centers. So that's just one example of where I could see these two pieces fitting together. And we get really creative in terms of, how could we partner and add value to help support sustainability or cause related marketing.
No, it's wonderful. Well, anyway, on that note, then, what's next? What's next for both you and for
Yeah.
World Bicycle Relief? And dare I not forget, Buffalo Bicycles. Yes.
Sure. Well, so I'm just getting going here, right? I'm only about 3 months into this role, so just every day is kind of a new adventure. I came in at a really exciting time where we've just announced our new strategy that's going to carry us through 2026. So we have a very ambitious target. Just to give you a sense of our impact to date. Over the course of the last 20 years, we've distributed close to 800,000 bicycles throughout globally. We have an ambitious target to distribute another 300,000 over the next 2 years. So that's going to require a real significant acceleration in terms of our growth. And one of the ways that we really see getting there is going to be through partnerships and less on corporate partnerships are going to be critical in terms of, funding and resources. But what I'm talking about is going after NGOs and larger scale development partners that are focused on driving outcomes in those areas of healthcare, education, and financial opportunities, and how we could partner with those larger NGOs or, in some cases, government entities that are rolling out those working on tackling those programs at a massive scale. And so I think that's going to be a huge part of our growth trajectory over the next few years is unlocking those partnerships that will help us to really scale our impact. And really, like I said, there's 1 billion people that are kind of trapped in this, that are living within this challenge of, lack of access to transportation. The need is huge. And while we've made a significant impact, we know that there's just so much, there's always going to be more that we can do. So I think it's really all about how do we get organized and how do we start to scale the model? We've proven what it looks like. We've proven how to do this sustainably and effectively. Now, how do we start to scale that into other geographies and partner to be that mobility partner for these other larger scale entities that are focused on solving the same problems? So we've got some ambitious targets. We've got a great team. We've got an amazing, as I mentioned, marketing communications organization. We've got some amazing people on the development side of the business. And then the real heroes are the people that are working in the program countries, managing the distributions, working with the communities on the ground. And so, all of that comes together. So it's very complex. We do challenging work. It's harder than you'd think to get a bicycle from a manufacturing facility to being underneath, the tree in Zimbabwe where it's being distributed at a school. It's much more complicated to do than people might imagine. But we've sort of figured out how to do this, in a sustainable way. And I think the future is very bright based on the new strategy that we have and the team that's coming together.
Well, I congratulate you. It sounds not only exciting, but it sounds so wonderfully worthy and so wonderfully necessary that
Yeah.
I applaud the direction you take, and I hope that you will continue talking to us because it's these kind of things that are really, I believe, at the new foundation of how business itself is being rebuilt. And I think
Yes.
we're going to see more public-private partnerships. We may not see as much government involvement, given that governments are still, staggering from the weight of COVID financing, so to speak. But I think there's a lot of potential to not only change models, but to make a different world. And I'm so excited that you're a part of it. So
I'm Thank you so
please
much.
stay in touch.
I appreciate the opportunity. And as I mentioned, we're doing some great stuff We have a lot of really interesting things that are coming through our marketing communications team. Hopefully I'll get a chance to share some of that with you guys on the stage at the ANA and keep the conversation going with the internationalists. So I'll definitely keep you posted. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing, and let's definitely stay in touch.
Yeah, and happy World Bicycle Day, and let's get moving.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to go to pedaltoempower.com or check out World Bicycle Relief across any of the key social platforms. Link up with us. As we mentioned, a donation as small as $165 can literally provide a bicycle to somebody in one of these communities. So if you're thinking about opportunities to where you could donate or make a difference, this is definitely a great way to get involved.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I look forward to continuing the conversation for sure.
Thank you, Deborah.
The Internationalist focuses on the continual reinvention of marketing by highlighting inspirational marketers around the world and their ideas as they move the industry forward. Internationalist Marketing TV shares these perspectives through interviews and personal stories. Thanks so much for watching. If you find this kind of content helpful, please click like or subscribe. Again, thanks so much.